It's Vancouver's podcast on the Canada's Podcast Network.
Izzie Egan is the founder of BLANKSLATE Partners. In 2015, Izzie started her company to allow SMBs and scaleups access to enterprise-level management HR services, supporting growing companies with a unique blend of HR, training, recruitment, and immigration expertise. She has extensive experience building fast-paced, high-yield management teams, paying particular attention to the strategic needs of the company. She's committed to bringing purpose-fueled employees into businesses that are aligned from both a values and strategic bottom-line perspective. Well, Izzie, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time today to be here for all our listeners.
Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, and give us the details on your current business.
Well, as you can probably hear from my accent, I am English by birth. I moved to Canada in 2004 and have been here ever since. Became a Canadian resident somewhere along the way, and then became a Canadian citizen somewhere along the way. So Canada is firmly home now. In fact, Vancouver is firmly home. I started BLANKSLATE Partners in 2015 because I decided a long time ago that small companies, small to medium-sized businesses, scale-ups, should have access to enterprise-level support from an HR perspective. Just because they are a small company doesn't mean they don't have any different challenges from the ones that large companies have, or any different successes from the ones that large companies have. So the concept behind BLANKSLATE Partners was to provide an outsourced HR service that made HR strategic thought accessible to companies that otherwise couldn't afford it. We primarily focus within the tech space, and when I say tech, I mean anything you can add tech to the end of, so agri-tech, biotech, pharma-tech, ed-tech, SaaS. We've been slowly growing. We started, as I mentioned, in 2015, and in 2018 we see ourselves with a team of 8, about 85 clients, both in Vancouver but also across the country in Edmonton and Halifax and Toronto, and then down the coast in Seattle and San Francisco. So it's pretty exciting.
Good. Okay. Back in 2015, did you need financing to start your company, and how do you currently make money in your business now?
That's a really good question. I wished we had financing. So we're very fortunate in the sense that we are a service-based company. So we charge a flat hourly rate for the services that we deliver, which means our clients only pay for what they use. So how we started was sweat equity. We just started hustling and doing the work. And luckily, we had people that believed in us and clients that wanted to work with us. We started with about 3 or 4 clients in May of 2015, and they told their friends, and their friends told their friends, and that's how we got to today. I think we got there scrappily.
Okay. Now, what is the long-term vision, and what will your company look like in the future? Do you see the company expanding into other areas, and where beyond Vancouver, BC, or even Canada?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think yes to both. BLANKSLATE Partners has the capacity to span geographically, obviously, within the same vertical that we're currently in right now. In fact, we could do it today if we wanted to. We have people in place in Seattle and also in Toronto that would love to step into our world, and it's definitely a very real consideration for this year in the short term. In the long term, I specifically picked the name BLANKSLATE Partners because I wanted it to be something that was not necessarily attached strategically purely to HR. Because I believe that the future of BLANKSLATE isn't just limited to providing enterprise-level support to small to medium-sized businesses for human resources, but also for other support functions that small companies don't necessarily have the access to. So whether that's CFO for hires, CTO for hires, bookkeepers, payroll, administration, whatever that might be. Perhaps it's marketing, perhaps it's sales, who knows. Perhaps it's COOs for hires. There are multiple verticals that I think our business model can scale and replicate in.
Okay, now we learned a little bit about you and Blank Slate, so we want to talk a bit about Vancouver now. What are the biggest benefits for you and being an entrepreneur here in Vancouver, BC? I want you to give us some of the good points about starting a company here, but I also want you to give us some of the tough things or challenges for our listeners so they can keep an eye out for them.
Yeah. So starting with the good points, for me personally, Vancouver has very much become my home. It's a relatively small city, although it's a big city. It's a very networked city. Everybody knows each other. For me, going into this business, Blank Slate started very easily because I had originally started my career way back when in Vancouver in the recruitment agency world. And when a number of my clients realized I was going out on my own into the world and opening a HR company, they were happy to come along for the ride. And I think part of that is because Vancouver is a small town or a small city that people get to know each other and they get to trust each other and they get to build relations upon it. To build on that, our company grew primarily in the first year through referrals because people seem to trust each other within the startup ecosystem and the scale-up ecosystem. So, what works for one, they're quite happy to share and tell each other, well, this is working for me and this isn't working for me and this has been great for me and this isn't great for me. These companies really help me, so you should have a chat with them. And we find that happens an awful lot for us. We'll get a call on a Monday, which is, hi, you don't know us, but so-and-so from such and such company actually just said that you can help us. And this is the question I have, and I need to do this, and I need to do it immediately. Like, can you help? I'm like, sure, of course we can. So sort of from a business perspective, that definitely helped starting a business in Vancouver. From a personal perspective, Vancouver speaks to everything that I wanted to find in my life. It's a city that gives me the space to be who I want to be and the hobbies I want to pursue. And it's also a city that somewhat encourages, others and each other to live a full and complete life, both inside and outside of work. And that's not to say that other cities don't, but my experience coming from the UK and London is you get to work at 6:37 in the morning and you stay at work until 6:37 at night, and then you go to the pub afterwards. And which is a lot of fun, don't get me wrong. But for me, I love the idea that I can go to a yoga class at 3:30 in the afternoon and come back into work afterwards, and no one seems to question that, because it's something of that sort of West Coast lifestyle. So those are the good points.
Now the tough things.
So, Vancouver. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of affordability, but I think I might. BLANKSLATE Partners had a really tough first year from a cash flow perspective. And it was really hard. And it was hard paying rent and living whilst trying to start a fledgling business. At the time, I had a co-founder, and neither she nor I was sitting on a trust fund or a ridiculous amount of money, and we didn't have financing to run the business. And it got to the point where, because of a cash flow situation, we had to decide what we were going to do with Blank Slate. And I remember sitting there saying, do you want it? Do you want the business? I can go and find another job. And her saying, I don't want it. And I remember being like, okay, crap, do I want it? Yes, I want it. But it's that conscious choice of like, okay, I want this and I want to make this work, but oh my God, I have to pay rent in Vancouver. So that was tough.
Now, do you find in the recruitment area, it's tough to bring people into Vancouver because of that? They're a little weary of the prices of living here?
Yeah, it's sort of, that's a good question. It's kind of a catch-22, because the payoff and why people choose to move to Vancouver is because it's Vancouver. And we have such an incredible city with such an incredible, vibrant lifestyle. And, you have those mountains in your back door, and you have those waters just on the shore. And from an outdoors perspective, and from a healthy living perspective and a wellness perspective, Vancouver has an exceptional reputation as a city of choice to live in. So from a recruitment perspective, to be perfectly honest, if people are going to come to Vancouver, they're going to come to Vancouver anyway.
Right. Okay.
A lot of the times it's explaining that cost of living deficit. It's explaining that rents, mortgages, et cetera, are expensive here. And in my humble opinion, I don't think that the salaries locally stack up to the cost of living. That's a whole other tangent we won't go down. But if you choose it, that's your choice. And a lot of people understand that Vancouver comes with a whole different payoff that isn't economical.
Okay, now you've mentioned some things about lifestyle and living here. We do some of our best work outside the office. Is there a place in the Lower Mainland, close to where you live or work, where you like to go recharge or get inspired with ideas or just think about your business? And does it change with the season, considering all the rain we get here?
Well, when I first started chatting to one of our clients, a gentleman by the name of Roger Patterson with Later, he explained to me that anyone that's got a problem with Vancouver and the rain should just go and stand in the forest and smell what it smells like when it's raining and take a deep breath and see if they still have a problem with it. And I think he's got a really good point there. For me, to recharge, there are definitely a couple of places. Some are seasonal and some are year long. My partner and I recently bought a boat. We have a Beneteau First 32 from 1983 that he very lovingly restored last summer. So last summer was basically spent on the hard in the marina. But for us, he's an entrepreneur as well. For us, getting out on the boat and being on the water, where our cell phones don't work, is an incredible place to just reboot and take a deep breath. For me personally, because I don't take the boat out on my own, I'm not good enough, I like to go to Bowen Island. I love to get on that ferry. As soon as I get onto the ferry, I literally feel my whole self just relax, and 20 minutes later you're pulling into Snug Cove, and I can almost taste the pizza from Tuscany Restaurant talking about it. It's one of my favorite places in the world, actually. And that's year round. I love it when it's raining and cold and wet and the wind's blowing and the thunder's bouncing off the hills, and I love it when it's sunny and warm and delightful and you can sit there and watch the ferry come in and out and see if the ferry's on time. And then in the winter, I love to go to Big White. It's a wonderful family-friendly skiing resort that's an awful lot of fun.
Okay. I want you to imagine, we have a lot of listeners from outside the country of Canada, international listeners that are coming in from all sources. So I want you to, in this next question, I want you to speak to them. I want you to imagine you just landed here from London. If you were to start all over again and you just moved here to Vancouver, BC, but this time you don't know anyone, knowing what you know now, what would you do and how would you go about starting all over again as an entrepreneur?
Okay. Well, I think one of the hardest struggles that people have when they land in Vancouver is making friends. For one reason or another, you either make, as a new immigrant, you either make traveler friends that are short-term friends that come in and out if you're of that age, or you make like-minded friends from the country that you're from. And sometimes it can be hard to take that step from work colleagues to friends. So I think making friends is one of the hardest things to do as an adult, let alone as a new immigrant in a new country that has a whole different way of social thinking than what you're used to. So I would have done what I finally did, but I would have done it sooner. I joined a field hockey club, a women's field hockey club, and I realized that there was 11 women that would have to speak to me, or at least a minimum of 8, because you have to have 8 to play. Every Saturday. And then from that, someone would become my friend. And actually my best friends here have 100% come from that field hockey club. And then, in terms of entrepreneurship, it's getting out there and it's building that connections and building that network. It's being honest and it's being vulnerable about who you are and what you want to do and why you want to do it. But I think that it sort of goes back to the first point we talked about Vancouver being a relatively small city. Connections and network are key. Myself, I'm pretty introverted, and I struggle when you put me in a room full of people I don't know. I will head straight to the bar and have at least 2 glasses of wine and then talk to the other person that's probably an introvert hiding by the corner or the coat stand, and ask them if they would like a drink and would they like to talk to me. So that for me has definitely been one of the struggles, and the hardest challenges is building that network. when it's not one that you grew up with or that you brought with you. If you're from Toronto and you've moved to Vancouver, there's a gazillion of you that are from Toronto and moved to Vancouver.
Right. Okay, let's talk a bit about your routine. What does the first hour look like for you when you get up in the morning? Do you have a specific routine or a ritual that helps you get you motivated to start your day?
Yes, my routine 100% starts with my dog, who does not allow us to lie in at all. So she is an early bird, and as she gets older, she gets earlier. So somewhere around 6:30, she thinks it's go time. And go time for Molly is, she's got to go out, she's got to go for a run, she's got to go for a walk, whatever it is, and she's got to get fed. It doesn't matter if Jack and I actually want to get out of bed or not. So my morning routine is spent with her. We go for a walk in the morning, and she gets her legs stretched and her quality time. And for me, it's that time to start the day mentally and put the day together in my head. So I guess it's something of a walking meditation, but not really. Not a conscious one, but it certainly happens. And then putting together the day, the first thing I do is look at my calendar, and I say, okay, well, what have I got to do today, and what does that look like, and where do I need to be, and who am I meeting with, and what do I need to prepare for? What time do I have to myself that I can do X, Y, and Z in, or what's on the calendar? So my morning routine is one that's directed by a dog, a very, very vocal dog.
Okay. Now, do you think entrepreneurs have to be weird or unique in a positive way, or are wired differently?
I think that's a really interesting question, because I believe that entrepreneurship is an attitude. And that doesn't mean that not everyone can develop that attitude, but I don't think everyone wants to. I don't think they have to be weird or unique, but it is certainly a mindset. It's behaviors that can be learned and that can be trained, but I think it's intrinsic to who you are as to why you choose that path. There's been a lot of studies done on risk tolerance of entrepreneurs and personalities of entrepreneurs. I know that for me personally, I'm an awful employee. I really am. I think that I am way smarter than everyone else in the room, and I move far too fast for not most people to keep up with, because that sounds arrogant, but even to slow down to explain, because I'm just so driven. And I think a lot of that comes from also how I was brought up. My mum was an entrepreneur, and her mother was an entrepreneur, which is very unique for their generations. At the age of 7, I told my mum that I wanted to have a gallery and a tea shop. That was going to be my dream. And actually, my first business was a gallery at the age of 27. But at the age of 7, I announced I wanted to have a gallery and a tea shop. And my mum, being my mum, took me to a tea shop in Brighton and said, "Okay, how big is this space? If the square foot is X, and the rent is Y, how much do you have to make per square foot? Okay, how many cups of tea do you have to sell in a day to make this? Okay, how many people are behind the counter and in the kitchens? How much do you have to pay them an hour? And what does that look like?" I'm sure for her, she was just, doing it as a math exercise for a 7-year-old. But what she was also teaching me was to think about what it meant to run a business. And those weren't, it wasn't a one-off conversation. That was the type of conversation we always had. So in some ways, I think I was always going to be an entrepreneur. And I think there are those people out there that were always going to be an entrepreneur because of how their brains tick.
Okay. What books are you reading now, and why, or even audiobooks? And can you recommend any books for our listeners who are also aspiring entrepreneurs?
Oh, good question. So I am currently listening to Human and Machine, which is about reimagining what's called Human and Machine, reimagining work in the age of AI, something along those lines. It's fascinating. For me, I'm really, really interested in how AI will change the working place, and what that also means for my industry, human resources, and how we can be early adapters to stay ahead of that curve, and how we can integrate AI into the workplace alongside humans, and what that means for building small companies and et cetera, et cetera. There are so many examples of large companies that have already integrated AI into their everyday routine. They don't even know it's there, or many of their employees don't even know it's there. But in the small to medium-sized business, it's not necessarily being done. So that's what I'm currently reading and listening to. I actually have both on the go at the moment. I listen to the audiobook as I drive home, and then I go home and reread the chapters. For books for your audience to listen to, there were a few that have been really, really integral in my journey of entrepreneurship. The first, obviously, being Eric Ries's Lean Startup Methodology. That one is one I've probably read 4 or 5 times. The second is a book by Mark Roberget, who was I think he was the number 3 or number 4 employee for HubSpot, and it's called The Sales Acceleration Formula. And it's a really fascinating read. I reference it quite a lot. And then I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan, and he has a book called Leaders Eat Last, which is a very, very good book to read as well. Now, I could keep going, but
okay.
Those are the 3.
What online or offline tools do you use on a regular basis?
Sorry, just to clarify, for work or for personal?
For work.
Okay. Well, given the space that we are in, LinkedIn is a huge tool for us. We are obviously constantly in LinkedIn on a very day-by-day, hour-by-hour basis. We use Asana to project manage our tools internally. From an applicant tracking system, we have one that we use, which is called Workable, that I highly recommend. And then there's an HRIS system that we also use. And all of these are web-based. HRIS system called Bamboo HR that we very much recommend to our clients. They are sort of the practical ins and outs of our business right now.
If you weren't doing what you do now, what would you like to do for a profession?
This one's easy for me. If I wasn't doing what I'm doing now and I could travel back in time to when I was picking what degree to do and et cetera, in my future, I would be an architect. I would love to be an architect.
That would be great, because I think in Vancouver with so much development, I mean, architects must just be busy. I know a friend of mine who works for an architectural company, and they're busy for the next, I think they got contracts for the next 20 years or something like that. So,
wow. Yeah, I love the concept of looking from a historical standpoint through architecture, but also looking at, where architecture is going in the future. I just find it fascinating. I could walk around any city for hours.
What kind of a job would you not like to do, couldn't do it?
I don't know if I could be a lawyer. I don't know if I could, or maybe a lawyer that sits behind their desk and pushes paper around all day, because I just do not think I could do that.
Okay. In business, what is your favorite word, quote, or sentence that you like to use?
Oh, I am a parrot for scalable and repeatable. It's got to be scalable and it's got to be repeatable. And every single thing that we try to build for our clients, we want to build it in a scalable and repeatable fashion so that as they grow, they're not reinventing the wheel.
What's your least favorite word or sentence you do not like to hear?
Culture fit. I hate hearing the term culture fit. It just makes my heckles.
Okay. If you had to pick 1 or 2 words to describe yourself, what would it be and why?
I think the first word I would probably pick to describe myself is kind. I've recently been talking through some of this work with a colleague of mine, and we often talk about values of a company, but for me, we really wanted to get into sort of individual values, and I really wanted to get deep into what my values were and what I valued. And what I realized is, for me, kindness is where I want to base every decision. I believe that if we can come from a kind place, and if we can be kind in who we are, we can build a really great place to live, work, breathe, and be.
Okay, what keeps you up at night, if anything?
On a practical level, my dog, as I mentioned, she's getting old, so she definitely has me up and down throughout the night. on an emotional level, I genuinely feel a sense of obligation towards my team, and I want to build a business that can support them and keep them in the world that they want to live in. And it stresses me and worries me that, there's a lot of responsibility when you have a team. So that definitely keeps me up, and I'm constantly trying to think about how we can do things and how we can do things better and what else we can do and what does that look like. And yeah, that keeps me awake at night.
Okay, I want you to give us the top 3 things on your inspired life list. This can be a bucket list of any sort, whether you want to travel more, whether you want to write books, TEDx talk, philanthropy, anything like that.
Yeah, well, babies, that's probably one you don't get very often, but we're currently working on that. At least 2, hopefully, in the near future. And then with babies, travel. So Jack and I would like to sail around the world. Sailing's how we met, and it's a big passion of ours. And one day we would like to be able to put both of our visitors either on hold, or maybe we get lucky and we can sell them or something, and take our kids off and take 2 years to sail around the world.
Do you have any advice that you may have received that you can pass on to entrepreneurs throughout BC?
I think I've had endless advice, and so much of it is so useful. But the one that springs to mind actually came from my partner, Jack, and it came from my partner this week. And he said to me, Izzie, just be a good person, be honest, and do the best that you can do. Because if you're a good person, you're being honest, and you're doing the best that you can do, that's all that people can ever hope for. Okay,
Izzie, are you ready to have some fun?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, as you know, entrepreneurs are very, very busy people. We're always connected. We're always online. Like you said, LinkedIn, you're always probably checking that out as well. But we're going to take you away from all that. There's a small tropical island just off of Fiji that only has 1 phone booth there. There is no internet. This place does exist, by the way. We're going to drop you off there. You won't have a computer or a smartphone or a tablet. You can use the phone booth located there anytime to call the boat. We'll come pick you up. How long would you last before you made that call? And what would you do while you were there?
Oh. So is there things that I can build on the island? Do I have any tools?
Yeah, you can have, there's a phone booth there, so it's got to go somewhere, right? So
okay. Can I Robinson Crusoe it?
You can do that,
if I could Robinson Crusoe it, I could stay there forever. Like I said, I'm an introvert. I genuinely love being in quiet places on my own. I as long as I could have tasks that I could do, so I could build a place to live, and then, I don't know, build some outbuildings and create a farm, build some I would have a blast. If I couldn't do all of that, I would probably last, I don't know, how long until I starve. If I don't catch anything, I guess 3 days. 3 days without water.
Well, we can take food in there with you if you want.
Okay.
There's just no internet.
It's just, that wouldn't bother me at all.
Okay.
I could honestly last forever.
Okay, so the boat's going to be sitting out there for a while.
Yeah, I genuinely dream of the days of the zombie apocalypse, purely because I think that A, I'd really do well at surviving. B, I think it would be awesome to just reset it where we don't have anything.
Okay, great. Okay, we're going to wrap things up. How can our listeners get hold of you? And is there anything you would like to add before you leave us today?
So they can find me, obviously, via LinkedIn, but also our website, which is www.blankslate.partners. Feel free to ping me via our Facebook page or our Instagram account, or Twitter. I'm pretty connectable. In terms of anything last to add, honestly, we just want to help people build better, stronger workplaces. So I feel like I'm doing good work in the world if we're helping people. So if anybody ever has any questions, doesn't matter how big or small, they can just reach out. And if they say that they heard of us from this podcast, I'd be more than happy to give them, as much time as they need as a free consult.
Fabulous. Okay, well, I hope my listeners take you up on that, and I'm sure they will learn a lot. Great.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, well, thanks for coming on the show. I've learned a lot about you, and I'm sure our listeners have as well.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, we'll see you next time.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.